Good evening, welcome to the September 6th meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation pledge of allegiance. If you join me in what has become custom here, each year as we mark as close as we can to the anniversary of 9/11, this Monday will mark the 16th anniversary. Each year we read a passage from one of the President's addresses at the National Cathedral that he delivered on September 14th to honor the memory of those we lost on that fateful day. Please join me as I take a moment to read a short excerpt from the President's speech, which will be followed by a moment of silence to honor the victims, the first responders, and our military of this great nation. He said, "In many of our prayers this week, there is a searching for an honesty. At St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York on Tuesday, a woman said, 'I pray to God to give us a sign that He is still here.' Others have prayed the same, searching hospitals, carrying pictures of those still missing. But God's signs are not always the ones that we look for. We learn in tragedy that His purpose is not always our own. Yet the prayers of private suffering, whether in our homes or in the great cathedral, are known and heard, and they are understood. They are the prayers that help us last through the day and endure the night. These are the prayers of friends and strangers that give us strength for the journey. And there are the prayers that yield to a will that is greater than our own. This world He created is of moral design. Grief and tragedy and hatred are only for a time. Goodness, remembrance, and love have no end. And the Lord of life holds all who die and all who mourn close to Him." Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Catalani?
Here.
Councilman Henner?
Here.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski? Here. Supervisor Kessler?
Here, we have a packed room, it looks like, and as you can see, the agendas are up front. There are three additions to the agenda. Two of them are resolution add-ons, 1 and 2, which we'll take up after item number 13, actually, and we'll put those add-ons there. One is an add-on to provide for autumn maintenance helpers to be hired, and the other one is an add-on to fill a vacancy in the labor position at the highway department. The third item that will be added on today is an executive session, which will come after those two add-ons. We will go to executive session to discuss a contract negotiation item, and we do not anticipate any further public business after that. So those are the additions. You can stay here if you like, or we're in executive session, but we do not anticipate any further public business after that executive session. So with that, I'll start on my left with Councilman Hennel for town council reports.
Yes, I actually do have a few items this evening. One, we'd like to thank all of the sponsors that contributed to the events that we had, our Thursdays in the Park over at Indian Meadows. We had some nice turnouts with the movies and the concerts there. So appreciate the sponsors that made that possible for everybody. Secondly, and it's exciting to always welcome new business to Glenville, and the Riverside Maple Farms out on Route 5 had a sneak preview, and they'll be having a grand opening. So encourage everybody when we see the announcement for that. We get the maple syrup and the candy and the cotton candy, and it'll be at Oktoberfest, which is my third item of business. It's just a reminder that coming up later this month on September 30th, we'll be having the Glenville Oktoberfest, and again, that's also thanks to the great businesses in Glenville that support that event. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Rivesky.
I have none.
Councilman Martin.
No report.
Councilman Pittavani.
Just a reminder, the DARE Advisory Board is having a golf tournament to raise money for the DARE program on September 17th at the Fairways at Half Moon. If you're interested, you can see Kevin, Officer Dunbar at the Glenville Police Department.
Thank you. Moving on to the public hearing, item number 5. Before we open this public hearing, I would like to invite our building inspector, Ernie Briscoe, to just address the board in relation to 9 Van Buren Road, and then we'll open the public hearing for comment.
Good evening. Just a quick history
history on this property here. I'm asking that the board take the necessary actions to conduct demolition of the unsafe structures and the removal of all the garbage, debris, and junk vehicles that are located in the property at 9 Van Buren Road. Just a brief history on the property and what entailed all these issues. On November 14th, 2013, the East Glenville Fire Department responded to a structure fire at the residence. Fortunately, nobody was home at the time, but while they were there fighting the fire, they discovered the house was filled with trash, debris, so much so that they could not really access a lot of the structure. There were walking trails in the home itself to go in and about the rooms. There was quite a bit of debris in there. So that evening, the house was posted as an unsafe structure, unhabitable, and the homeowner was advised that the property had to be taken care of. March 2014, no action was done on the structure, whether it was taking care of the issue of the fire, or cleaning it out, or addressing the debris in the back. So a notice of violation was issued to the homeowner. April 2014, still no communication from the property owner. A reminder notice was sent. No action and no communication based on that notice. May of 2014, still no communication, no action, so a summons was issued to the property owner to appear in court. That court hearing was scheduled on May 29, 2014, and the property owner did not show for that court hearing. Building currently is in a state of disarray, is totally unsafe to enter, to be able to even clean it out at this point. It has been reported by neighbors that the vehicles and the building itself is starting to be inhabited by animals, whether it be raccoons, foxes, things like that. So it's gotten out of hand, and it's obvious that the property owner will not address it. So I'm asking the board to take the necessary action to take care of the property.
Does anybody have any questions for Arnold?
In terms of the cost for the demolition, is that something that's posted as a tax lien like, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Arnold, do you know if the taxes ever get current on the property, so there's a retroactive change?
They have not.
Has the foreclosures been issued by the county yet, or they're not moving on?
I'm not aware of foreclosure issue yet.
All right.
And you haven't been able to locate the owner?
Not at all.
I had heard through a good friend that the person possibly is deceased, so I don't know.
That would be more than I heard. We had contacted family members, and they stated that they refused to even communicate with him or talk to him, so they really didn't know anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Arnie.
With that, we will open the public hearing here. Anyone interested in relation to the unsafe property at 9 Van Buren Road? Public hearing is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? Going once? Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Dowd.
If you could just come right up, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Dowd. I live at 11 Van Buren Road, right next to the house. We have noticed all the animals. I have been reporting them. From what we were told, he's still in the home. The reason it was taking so long is he was paying his taxes and paying on the house still. The guy has severe brain injury, so a lot of times when I talk to him, it was like reliving the same conversation over again. When they did talk to him from here, they were saying every time they talked to him, he thought it was the first time coming in. So mentally, I don't think he's able to do what he's supposed to do. It was over 2 years I kept reporting after the incident that 2 of those windows were not boarded up, so all the snow, weather, everything else was going in there. I did pest control for 3 to 4 years, so knowing all the water damage and how that was open like that, a big concern of mine, even when it's being brought down, is termites and cockroaches and stuff like that. So I would hope when that is done, that's taken care of first. The fence right next to it on the border of our house, that has been coming down. I've been trying to nail that up to try and keep it up the best I can. But I don't want my kids anywhere over near that property. I know there's been plenty of contractors that have come to my house trying to look into buying and flipping the property, but they, again, same thing, they can't get a hold of the guy, and they're told us the only avenue that you can get to. I personally have been getting a lot more snakes and mice over in my yard or house since this incident has happened. I think a lot of it is just due to all the overgrown grass and shrubs and stuff over there. Including living in the house, I think they've got a lot of shrubs or cut trees and stuff over in the back. That I believe there's a lot of animals housing in there over there too. There's also two sheds they have back there that are packed, but I don't know how they're still standing up. Both of those have looked like they've been ready to fall over too. So, I mean, it's been over 5 years or 5 years. I just think something definitely needs to be done with this.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter?
Hi, I'm Erica LaValle, and I live across the street at 16 Van Buren. And like Mark, I have called numerous times since the fire to report that the grass has not been upkept, that the property is deteriorating, that there are animals, that there are vehicles that are now uncovered, tarps have blown off. It's quite the eyesore. My kids walk past there to get to the bus stop, and of course his family lives next door, he has small children. I did report to the town multiple times to have it mowed or to have it maintained. I also did report it to the comptroller's office for zombie properties. I was told it did not qualify because there was no mortgage, so that's paid. So there was no way to foreclose on it. I also did confirm with the county clerk's office and the town that the taxes have not been paid in over 4 years, and it's upwards of $30,000 in back taxes. Schenectady County Clerk did say that it could be put up for a tax foreclosure, but they weren't sure exactly the time on that. So we would like to expedite due to the fact that there's been no taxes, no owner, no real maintenance, and I just feel like it's very dangerous. And as Mark stated, with the windows being open since the fire, there's probably lots of spores and mold, and it's just inhabiting the entire space. We have talked to other neighbors who weren't able to be here that were also wanting to bring forward their desire to have it demolished, hopefully with some safety around that demolition so that it would not then overflow into the neighboring houses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arnie, on the house coming down, what about the rest of the property? So all the wood pile of trees and everything, do we clean the entire property up?
That would be our wish, to have all the debris, the cars, the outbuildings, and the dwelling itself removed.
And who maintains the property going forward, the grass and all that? Would it be under our...
The mowing may fall upon us until the property is purchased.
Okay.
How long does this take now, once this is approved, for the actual demolition to occur?
I would think the board would allow to bid for a contractor to do the work, and do the bids and the board as they see fit.
Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? 9 Van Buren. Going once, going twice. Hearing is now closed. We'll move on to the second public hearing tonight, which is the matter to be heard, any person wishes to be heard on a proposed local law adding a new chapter 130 to the code of the town of Glenville, which is in relation to excavations and encumbrances. That public hearing is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on that particular issue? Going once, going twice, seeing none, is now closed. We now move to privilege of the floor. And we do have a few people signed up with privilege of the floor, and the first one signed up is Ross Thornhill.
Hi there. My name is Ross Thornhill, 82 Fredericks Road. lifelong resident of the town of Glenville, with the exception of 3 years, having grown up on Jennifer Road, bought my first house on Jesse Court, and now my third house on Fredericks. And just wanted to quickly discuss the budget, although I haven't read it or seen it yet. But just wanted
Big
to...
anticipation, it's
Right, so couldn't discuss it afterwards, but I figure I'll do it before. As a lifelong resident of the town of Glenville, I certainly love living here. There are many things, there are many reasons why we have decided really to stay in the town. And part of them are certainly the services that we receive from the town, whether that's the police department, the public works. And I just wanted to make sure that, and again, I don't know how often, people will come up here and tell you that, as residents, we truly appreciate what everybody does. But we also need to make sure that they are funded appropriately. And that means that we have the correct staffing for the amount of growth that we've seen in this town. And it's wonderful that we've had this large economic boom here. And continues to occur. But as that has occurred, we want to make sure that that safety still occurs within the town, and that our police department is properly funded for the amount of growth that we're seeing, and whether that is industrial, commercial, or residential growth. As an aside, and you people also know, I'm the assistant chief at the East Glenville Fire Department. I'm the president of the Town of Glenville Fire Chiefs Association. And what we have seen with regard to increase in calls is pretty impressive. And that is within almost every one of any of our districts, whether it's East Glenville, Thomas Corners, Outlaws. Just a very large number of additional calls relative to what you saw 10 years ago. So, certainly we compensate and do what we can from trying to find volunteers, but we also need to make sure that we're safe, and keeping us safe are the police department. This also occurs with, let's say, the heroin epidemic that's occurring now. Any scene that occurs where we have a heroin overdose, those scenes need to be cleared by a police officer before we go in. And if we don't have proper staffing, that means that those individuals will be waiting because we will not go into an unsafe situation until our police department is able to clear us. Also want to talk about the building department. The building department has 2 employees, as I understand. We have, again, a tremendous amount of growth in our area. We need to make sure that those buildings that are being put up are being put up within our zoning laws, within our building laws, and do not put, in my case, firefighters at risk for any substandard construction that might possibly be put through because we only have 2 individuals within the building department. For, again, a large amount of growth in this area. And finally, I want to thank and appreciate the highway department and make sure that they are appropriately funded because, it's what we see. And really the town, as far as from a tax standpoint, I did the quick numbers, it cost me about $3 a day to live in this town. And that's outside general fund, highway department. So for less than a cup of coffee now at Dunkin' Donuts, it costs me to live in this town and enjoy, what we have here. And I don't think that's really too expensive. So I don't look at what we spend on a town standpoint affecting me certainly as much as, let's say, the county or state or federal. We see what the town does for us on a daily basis. We may not see what the state does or the feds do on a daily basis. So we want to make sure that we do fund the departments that you guys control appropriately to make sure that they have the resources and tools that they need to protect us and to provide the services that they provide. So that's all I had. Just wanted
Thank
to
you,
make sure
Ross.
everybody, but thank you.
Thank you. Lori Antno is the next person.
And my neighbors from across the street come up as well?
Are they on here, Don?
Yeah.
You want to do it together?
Sure.
All right, that'll be fine. So both Lori and Don.
My name is Lori Antel. I live at 33 Rosemere Road. I'm here to ask questions regarding the waiver that Mr. Mark Hines is requesting. Back in May of 2016, it was a 3-lot subdivision. I see that he is now asking for a 4-lot subdivision. And also to find out what is going on with the road in front of my house, my neighbor's house, and the ditches.
Okay, so privilege of floor, unfortunately, I have a question to answer.
Okay, that's fine,
And
that's
the other
fine.
thing is we don't have our highway superintendent here tonight,
Okay.
we'll be able to answer those questions.
Okay.
We can facilitate another meeting. I know Tom and I have both been to your
Yes,
house.
yes.
We can do that
Okay.
to answer questions, but
Okay.
Tom would be the one that would want
Okay,
to.
all right. Well, like I said, I really would like to get everything. I plan on putting the house up for sale in about 6 months, and I want this resolved. So when would be the best time to, and I'm going to let them speak as well.
Yeah, I mean, can I have your contact information? We can reach out to each other
Okay.
and set something
All right.
up.
Okay, thank you.
Now, just remember, this is, tonight we're dealing with setting a public hearing. The resolution will set the public hearing, it's not
Okay.
accepting anything yet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the next
That's
meeting
all here.
that you'll want to speak on is the 20th, so you want to have your answers, your questions answered by the 20th.
20? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Don?
Hi, I'm Don Centrione, I'm at 34 Rosemary Road. I guess since we can't do any really question and answers right now, I just want to express my concerns about the ditches and the issues we've been having with them ongoing. We are definitely not trying to obstruct anything, I just want to make that clear, but we just want to get some answers from the town and move forward with this.
Did you have a chance to talk to Tom? I think Tom said.
Yeah, he actually spoke to me just this afternoon, so I got a few answers from him, but I think it'd be good if we could all have a meeting and with the town and the neighbors together and just talk through this. It'd be great.
All right, we'll facilitate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Schumacher is the next person.
Hi, Dave Schumacher, live at 138 Spring Road. I'm trying to build on Rosemere. 9 months ago, a subdivision was filed with the Schenectady County. I thought then at that time I should be able to get a building permit. I'm getting taxed for a full building lot. This road really has nothing to do with my building lot. I got a building permit issued for a partial building February 21st. Since then, I had a capped foundation that's getting wet, it's getting rotten. I can't cover it. I've covered it twice, pulled it off, tried to recover it. I'm having a hardship right now. I put my house on the market because I had a building permit in February. I'm closing on the house tomorrow. I gotta live in an apartment now. So I'm having a hardship. I've got tons of money into this land already. I can't back out. I need a building permit. So I don't know what the road has to do with my building permit. I have a building lot. So I'm asking the board to grant me a building permit so I can finish my house. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Paul Di Lorenzo if needed.
Not needed.
Not needed.
Good job.
Okay. Do you reserve the right to come back, Paul, if you're needed? Okay. And then John Pearson.
John Pearson from 17 Via Maria Drive. It's a little bit putting the cart before the horse because you haven't really presented the budget, but from what I did read in the Gazette last week, I have concerns that 8.5 years after the recession ended, we are still pulling money out of our reserves. I think the budget should be balanced without taking money out of the reserves. We're overdue for another recession. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Anyone else wish to be heard if heard before? Yes, ma'am.
name is Sean Kuzak. I live on Goldfoot Road right now. I purchased land from Mark Hines with a 3-lot subdivision that was approved in November. My land was purchased on January 27th, right after Mr. Schumacher purchased his. I have a builder lined up. I have a house that's supposed to be delivered in September. I have a lot of money put into this project. I cannot get a building permit. We're being taxed as it's a buildable lot. We're 9 months into it, September 6th. And I've been reassessed. I don't think it's fair that I should be paying for a building lot when I can't build on it. We've had a lot of wet weather. Mr. Schumacher's got a lot of materials that are getting destroyed. I think the town really needs to make a decision, at least allow us to start our building process, because as you said, this does not impact, our housing does not impact the road. And we think that perhaps the town maybe prematurely approved this subdivision without having everything in place as it should have. I just would ask that they reconsider, because a lot of money has been put out, and we really need to get going on our building. It's going to cost us a lot more money because we're going into colder weather. We're going to have to pay for heating. We're going to have snow removal to deal with, delivery problems probably. We have, to keep everything up. It's a private road now. I've sold my home, as Mr. Schumacher did. I have to pay for rent now. And my home is scheduled, I have a panelized home. It is scheduled to be delivered on September 27th. And I can't get a building permit. We just would like you to, help us with our undue hardship, because we really thought we were buying into an approved subdivision, and apparently we have not.
Thank you. And now it's wish to be heard, privilege of the floor. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't plan this. Hi, Chris.
How are you?
We have lots of email communications.
Yes, we do.
Bonnie Osfeld, Harmon Road. I've lived in Harmon Road for 39 years. I just have a couple of comments that I'd like to make. One actually involving the budget before you actually get started. But prior to that, we have a fire that was at 7 Harmon Road a couple of years ago. And I've had a couple of conversations with the building supervisor, who did everything that he can with that property, and now it's in receivership with the bank. But it does still have plastic blowing in the wind, and it is an eyesore.
What's the address?
7 Harmon. There was a fire.
Harmon will look into that.
Oh, are you the one I talked to?
Yes.
Okay. He does a great job.
Thank you.
So that's my concern on Harmon Road. I also want to thank the police department. An amazing job. I live right next door to the woman that committed suicide a few weeks ago. And it was a shock to all of us, but it was what it was. And I just was amazed at the high level of service that the police department provided to the entire neighborhood. Yes, there was crime there, and there was crime tape there for several days, and forensics was in there and whole 9 yards. But in the end, I have to commend the police department, and you should give them lots of money.
They've got a lot of drinks, I think.
The other thing that I want, which I have called about year after year after year, and you don't listen to me. I want, for Christmas, the holidays, I want sparkly wreaths. somewhere in this town along Route 50.
I'm listening to you, Bob. I told you exactly what you asked for. I think it was March, and I said, wait till the holiday season comes.
It's coming,
It's
you
coming.
know.
It's
I
coming.
read that it's like only 8 weeks away. I don't see any sparkles yet, so I'm just reminding you what you said. My final thought is that as you go through the budget, and I've said this before, we have lots of email conversations. And what I really, really would like in this town is some kind of entertainment. Every time I want to do something, I have to leave the town. I have to go to Clifton Park. I hate Clifton Park. Oh my God. Have you driven through Clifton Park lately? Oh my God, it's terrible. So please do not develop a Clifton Park here, but we do need some kind of entertainment, a movie theater, something. I mean, the bowling alley burned down in Burn Hills, never was replaced. You want to go out to eat, knock yourself out. There's plenty of places. But I don't want to go out to eat. I want some kind of entertainment. I want something that's going to make me laugh and smile. Like here.
You have to come more often. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks. My name is Jim Donahue. I live at 29 Rosemere Road. I wasn't planning to come up and speak today, but I just saw the notice in the about the hearing with the subdivision. Thought I'd come in and hear what was going on. I've lived there for about 20 years now, and originally was in this room when it was going to be a 20-unit subdivision. And when it got reduced down to 10, we declared victory. That was great news for us. We kind of resigned ourselves at that point that there's every right to develop that land. I don't deny that at all. Really, what we feel is that it just needs to be done properly and with consideration for the neighborhood. We've lived through a lot of construction in those 20 years that's gone on. It's pretty tough. It's pretty rough when you have the very large trucks rumbling down the street. I've had my wires pulled down, that road the street. There's a ton of dust. And I guess before any waivers, really the point that I wanted to make before I just in front of you folks is the fact that I think as far as I know, last July when the subdivision was approved, there were about 8 conditions of approval. And some more important than others in my opinion. And I guess I just want to make sure that before any waiver is granted, that those are complied with. Specifically, that there was bond coverage for the road. The dialogue during last year's hearing, there was a lot of discussion about the road being in poor condition beforehand. I was there when it was paved roughly 20 years ago, and it's deteriorated quite a bit. Secondly, this ongoing discussion about how the road is going to end, Hammerhead cul-de-sac, there's been just tremendous confusion, tremendous discussion about it. I don't know what the big deal is, but I think it just needs to get settled. The other condition was a statement regarding plans for the remaining property. Again, I think a reasonable request, something that the Planning and Zoning Commission asked for. Just want to make sure, again, before any waiver is granted, that these are addressed. Finally, an explanation regarding the existing 2 lots at the end of the road, scheduled for construction. Again, I'm sure everyone would like a schedule for construction. And probably the one that bothers us the most in the neighborhood is the dust. There was a condition of approval, mitigation of dust and compliance with erosion control measures. That's the one that really, it's a nuisance. As the construction is going on in the summer, and particularly, you have to keep your windows closed. That's a bit tough on the neighborhood. Again, I don't deny, or I'm not trying to argue a right to develop that land. We went from 20 to 10, declared victory. We're at 4 now, maybe hopefully we'll stay at 4. But just want to make sure again that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before it goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Privilege of the floor. Going once, going twice. Seeing none.
hearing is now closed. We'll get to the budget presentation, and although we had a few folks start talking about it ahead of time, this is really meant to be an interactive discussion, so feel free to raise questions, comments, concerns as we go through it. It's a meaty presentation. Just to give you some expectation, there's 30 slides. We'll go through them as quick as possible, but there's some very important things in these slides, particularly in context of some of the thoughts and concerns we heard already today. But before I begin, I do want to just point out that we do have Officer Ben Peretti in the room with us. He says he doesn't like the attention, and I believe him, but I do want to acknowledge him and welcome him back, and please join me in giving him a round of applause. I'm honored, Ben, that your first visit back to this room is to see my presentations. Glad I inspired you.
Yes, I hope.
There's a few things I need over here still. That package right there, and my glasses. Right, now I'm comfortable. All right. So thank you all for coming, or for those of you who came to the budget presentation. I do think this is the most important thing the town board does each year. A budget is nothing more than a policy expression in numbers, and although a lot of it is actually set for us, and we'll talk about that a little bit, I just want to tell you I think this is probably the most important thing we do, and by hearing some of the comments today, I think some folks in the town agree with that. We're going to go through just quick a few of the basics of the budget, because everyone has a different understanding of the budget. The town of Glenville actually has a variety of budgets. When we talk about the budget, general fund, outside fund, it's a $17 million spending plan that is comprised of a variety of different funds, including the sewer, the water, and the special districts. The main funds we talk about are the A fund, or the O1, which has everything in there that is town-wide: parks, the clerk, the supervisor, the board, the comptroller. That's put out over the 29,000 residents, including the village. We have to break out in our B fund, or O2 line, anything that the village provides themselves that we don't provide for them. Our police, our planning department, building department, codes, things like that. And then the highway fund, which is the O4, the D fund. So of that $17 million, the A fund, that's $4 million fund. The B fund is almost $5 million. You're going to see highway, it says here 3.8. Later you're going to see it's 4.1. I think we rounded up in one of them, rounded down in another. That's 3.8, right?
For the D fund.
Oh, for the D fund, okay. And then you'll see the sewer fund and the water fund, and then of course all the special districts. So that's kind of a first glance at the budget. Where we get our revenue, and we're going to talk more about this later, 54% of our revenue comes from property tax. That's on your tax. That's on your levy, property tax. Sales tax makes up another 22% of our revenue, and then you see it gets down into these small little things: mortgage tax, state aid, franchise fees, that's the cable franchise fee, court fines, and others. So that's kind of, we're going to talk a lot more about this later, this piece of the pie. That gives you a sense. Where it goes by department, here's where I say highway, $4.1 million budget. I think that's from 2017 budget, as you can see down there. Police, $4 million budget. The entire rest of the town is about 20%. And then you see dispatch, park, seniors are all small portions of it. Debt service is getting smaller. We'll talk about that in a little while. By expense category, no question about it. This is not a knock. This is not trying to say anything other than what it is, a fact. 60% of our expenses are employees. We're a people-driven business, if you want to call us a business. 4.7 million goes to wages, 1.9 to health, 1.1, that should be a point, to retirement, Debt service takes up a small piece. The rest of the operations of the town, everything else is 3.8 million, and then other employee expenses, other benefits, 655,000. So when we talk about staffing, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, what just happened? Hang on a minute. In the meantime, when that's rebooting, we all know the dollar bill that we show where your tax dollar goes. And essentially, right now, the school taxes are out in the mail. They're coming, to do this month. Of every dollar you pay, of every tax dollar you pay, 66.5 cents of that dollar goes to the school. 22.9 or almost 23 cents goes to the county. The town, and I think Ross talked about this earlier, alluded to it, only gets about 10 cents for every tax dollar you pay annually. So the town is being run on the leanest budget possible. You take the least amount of that property tax. We don't even have enough money to get a good projector. Why is that not coming up? That should be coming up. There it is.
So that begs the question, why?
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 Why do we get such a small part of it? Because our budget is so small compared to the county. Our budget is a $17 million budget. The county has a $320,000 budget. Million budget. So that is why our budget is so small. Let me just try to see if I can pull it down again. 35, 40.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell me why. How come we don't get them? Who's in charge?
Who's in charge of that decision?
You're the taxpayer, you're in charge.
Who decides that we only get 20, what did you say? 22%?
10 cents.
10 cents.
10 cents. Why?
And what is the county paying? 23 cents.
Well, okay, so we're going to get into that. So that's the dollar bill. This is why. So we get this piece of your dollar bill. It's because the county has such a large budget. Obviously, they're going to take a much bigger piece of the bill because they have a $320 million budget. We have a $17 million budget. But what I want to say is so often I hear from people, I pay $10,000 a year in taxes, so this town owes me this. No, this town doesn't get $10,000 in taxes. Most of the taxes go to the other entities. And we're going to actually be illustrated in the growth slide we're going to get to very shortly.
All right. I'll try and be patient.
That's good. So our budget objectives have always been hold the line on operational costs. So when you look at the town budget, we've cut costs over the years, and we're going to continue to work on cutting our operational costs, protecting the fund balance. John said it absolutely right. We inherited a budget 8 years ago. We'll get to the slide in a few minutes. It was almost $1.4 million being allocated towards the operations of this town. That is like a drug. You can't just cut that and not add implications. So we went, and we'll go through this, and backed out or backed down that dependency. We're still in backing down that dependency, but we're doing it in a gentle way, and we'll show you a slide on that. Cutting the debt load is very important. We'll talk about that. Expanding the tax base, because that's the only way we're going to potentially get new revenue in here other than a levy, and fighting for our fair share of the sales tax revenue, and that's really going to be, I think, the biggest thing we talk about. When I talk about our operational expenses, this slide keeps me up at night more than probably anything else. We, since 2008, have decreased our employee count by 25% drop in employees. A lot of that had to do with the fact that dispatch moved. So it wasn't just cuts, we didn't cut anybody, there has been some attrition, but not a lot, it's mostly dispatch moved. Our wages only went down 9%, or by almost $500,000 in that time frame. But this should scare everybody in this room. Our benefits increased by 53% in the face of losing 25% of our employees. Think about it. That is out of control. This is completely out of control. If this trend continues, our benefits line will surpass our salary. That is unsustainable. This should worry everybody. And if you don't get worried on this gap closing like this, I don't know what will. But we cannot maintain that. Because I'm going to show you in a few minutes, there's only one place that money is going to come from, and it's your levy. And I'll show you why in a few minutes. Fund balance has been cut dramatically by $930,000 or 70% since we inherited this budget in 2010. At that point, it was 1.329. I agree with John. I think this board agrees 100% that we're doing all we can to get there. I think we need to get there. As you can see, the closer we get to it, the harder it is. These numbers start getting to be closer together, and so it's harder, but we're committed to it. This budget cuts another $65,000 out as far as allocation, $65,000. Our debt load has dropped by $10 million since 2009. That's huge. That's a huge help to our operational budget because it frees up money that would have went to debt service. We had a bigger drop here, but what we did, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the board's objectives, is we included their water meters in 2017. We're doing a new water meter, automatic read meter into all the homes in town. Because we created a capital fund in water, we were able to pay for half of it in cash, half of it we had a bond. We're looking to pay for as much as we can in cash now with capital funds, but we're still looking to project even a bigger drop in debt into 2018, and that represents a 41% decrease in debt. We have expanded our tax base. Ross talked about the growth in the town. 2010, under $2 billion. 2017, over $2 billion. Doesn't look like it when you talk about $1 billion here or there, but it's a 3% growth or a $59 million increase in taxable value. That's very good. That's very good. That's one of the things we need to do is to expand our tax base if we're going to try to increase revenue. But it's not as what you may think, unfortunately, because when you look at who benefits from the expanded tax base, it's the school. That property increased $59 million. Increase means that the town has received $215,000 in additional funds over those, what did I say, it was 10 years? No, 7 years? 7 years. The school districts received $1.3 million almost. The county took $468,000. And that's because the tax levy rate is so low compared to the other entities. We get so little. So we're growing significantly, but our property tax levy isn't growing with it at the level that other entities are enjoying. And so this is a problem because we do have growth. Ross is right. We have growth. We have, with that growth, growing pains, but we're not getting the revenue that we really need to cover the additional costs to meet those needs. So you remember,
Again, I'm sorry, but it just begs the question, why? Why, if we are growing, does the school get more money? Do I need to go to the school budget meeting? I mean, I don't get it.
So it's because if you look at the budgets at the county level and among a lot of the school districts, they are growing at a level or at a rate that is faster than the rate, the growth in revenue. It's faster than the growth in tax base, and it's in the face of a stagnant and oftentimes declining population.
we're going to have some slides on that, Jim. I don't want to get too far ahead because those slides are covered. We're going to show exactly what Jim's talking about. But again, the factor here is the tax rate. Because our taxes are so low in this town,
we get so little. We can raise the tax rate levy, and then we would get more, but that's, you don't want to see your taxes go up 10%, 20%. Maybe the slides coming will help you with this. So you remember when we talked about the two major sources, one is the property tax, the second is the sales tax. Now, when the town is growing, the best thing you could do is collect sales tax, because that's where your revenue is going to come from. It's really going to drive a change in the budget. But unfortunately, we live in Schenectady County, and this example illustrates, for every $1 million in new sales tax, Target generates about $1 million in new sales tax. The casino will generate about $1 million in new sales tax. Schenectady County takes $745,000, almost 75% of the new sales tax that's generated. Schenectady City takes 130 or 13%. Metroplex, which is part of the county, really gets another $87,500, which is about 8.8%. Glenville, the towns, not just Glenville, the towns get $9,200 off that $1 million in revenue. 0.9%. I'm sorry? That's just Glenville, but every town is in the same boat. So it's not just Glenville getting the short end of the stick with Schenectady County. Every Schenectady town is feeling this same.
And that level of sales tax revenue has been fixed for how long? 16 years.
And we have a slide on that.
And by the time that this current sales tax agreement expires, it will be at a fixed rate or a fixed level for 20 years.
If the county doesn't agree to reopen it, and the county can agree to reopen the agreement. In fact, 12 counties have reopened agreements across the state in the last 10 years. More than half of them giving a greater share to the local governments, because this is a killer of local governments. This is a killer.
So Chris, as residents, how do we help the town with that? How do we lobby the county?
Yeah, well, you all have county legislators that should be engaged in this conversation, and we've tried to get them engaged in this conversation. The only way to reopen the agreement is to talk to your legislators. They have to open that agreement. They have to open that agreement. And we're gonna go over some slides about some comparisons that will help people talk about the argument as to why. We're not just saying that it's grossly unfair or do something about it. It's grossly unfair, but even compared to our sister communities, we're being strangled. Well, they're growing and they're prospering.
And the other thing that you're instantly going to hear is if you threaten that revenue stream, and this is in the face of Metroplex increases, casino funding increases.
Jim, we're going to get to all that.
I know, but let me finish. So you're going to hear that, well, they'll have to cut services. They'll have to cut their expenses. And I guess my answer is, so what? We're all doing that.
All right. So, thank you. So, when you look at other counties, Saratoga County shares their sales tax 50-50 with their towns. You just saw what we got. Saratoga County, 50-50. So you look at a town like Clifton Park, which only has 3,000 more residents than we have. They're getting $12 million. $12 million into their budget to run their budget. We're getting 2.7 with only 3,000 fewer people in our town. This illustrates the tale of two towns. And they're our neighbor. And if we had $12 million coming in, I can tell you we wouldn't have a town tax either. I mean, we'll get into that in just a minute. So you look around the region, how do counties share? Albany County, 40% with their local government. Saratoga County, we just said 50%. Rensselaer, 36%, 38%. Herkimer, 39%. Schenectady, total, 25%. Lowest county that we found in looking at any of the counties around here, the least amount of sharing with their local governments.
Chris?
Yes.
Don't the counties have to justify that though? Like how does Schenectady justify sharing only 25% and Saratoga 50%? Where's the...
Nobody's asked them that question yet. They haven't had to answer that question yet.
That's what we need to get our legislators to answer. How can you justify such a disparity between the counties?
It's time for the towns, the
Right.
leadership of the towns, to gang up on Schenectady County and say, what up, gentlemen?
Right.
But I don't think the administrators alone can do it. I think the people need to speak, as many as possible.
Exactly.
I agree.
And one of the problems is the other two major towns, Rotterdam and Niskuna, do not have this concern. And I'll leave it to you to understand why they may or may not have that concern. But everything, all politics is local. And so you just have to kind of figure out where that comes from.
Do any of the county legislators ever attend these town meetings?
We have not seen a county legislator in this building in my time here.
Maybe for some ceremonial.
Yeah, not even, I don't think. Maybe one or two, but never to a meeting, no.
See, and if you look across the landscape of the region, because I have, Wilton has no town tax. Town of Malta has no town tax. Town of Queensbury and Warren County, very similar numbers. They have no town tax. This system of governance and the way it's funded, it's all predicated on there being balance among these revenue streams. And when you introduce an unnatural component of a 20-year agreement that's at a fixed level of revenue from sales tax, you've destroyed that balance in that system. And that's what it's predicated on. It's not predicated on a fixed level of sales tax. It can't operate that way.
When we talked about that with the increase in costs going up, employee costs going up, there's nowhere else to go. This slide is going to really...
The question on this still is there any comparison statewide as to where the Schenectady County falls? Just to get an idea, I know this is regionally, from the state perspective, do we have an idea where that falls?
Yeah, we've looked at stuff from the Office of the State Comptroller, and this is pretty consistent. I mean, I don't think we found a county that has been more stingent with the share. I don't recall that. I won't say with certainty at this particular juncture, but looking at the charts.
Probably in the bottom 10.
We're definitely
Not a rate.
Oh, yeah.
Not even a rate.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be
No question.
enough.
This chart actually is going to illustrate something that concerns me deeply. And this is the difference between the Saratoga towns here. So this is the sales tax they get into their budget, and this is what the levy they need to use. These are Saratoga towns. Look at this. It's the inverse in the Schenectady towns. The burden is on you, the property owner in Schenectady County, because Schenectady keeps the sales tax. That's the problem. When you go to Milton or Wilton or Charlton or Clifton Park, they love to say, oh, we have no sales tax or very little sales tax, property tax, because look at what they're getting. In Wilton, 63%, 64% of their budget is covered by sales tax revenue. In Glenville, it's more like 17. That's a huge problem. This is a tremendous problem, because what we can't get out of this stone, we got to get out of this stone in Schenectady County. That's the problem, right there. The tale of two counties. And we're not alone, ma'am, just to get to your point. Niskuna and Rotterdam should be saying the same thing in their town, and they are not. They are not. I'm not even sure they're aware of this, based on the crickets we're hearing from those supervisors. I don't think it's even a concern of theirs. And that's unfortunate, because they're in the same exact boat as we are. And we need them. If we're going to go to the county, we need them. This slide shows we're not getting what our others, now we talk about the growth. Look at Queensbury. Since 2006, in 10 years, Queensbury has received almost $3 million in new sales tax. The town of Glenville's only got $103,000 over 10 years in new sales tax. You can't run a town on this, a town that's growing. Queensbury, 1.9 in Half Moon, 1.6 in Bethlehem, 1.5 in Clifton Park. We're not even near anybody else. Not even near anybody else. So when you talk about funding things properly, which I think we could all have different agreements on what that means, You can do that in Queensbury, but how do you do it in Glenville without driving the tax levy? And regardless if people think that's a little bit or a lot or not, we still have to be responsible. And we
Why do we
can't.
have to belong to Schenectady County?
Well, that's been brought up many times, I gotta tell you.
What, you want to know? You want to know a real solution to that? Because
I do. Why do we have to belong to that?
Because there's another implication here that is very evident. Saratoga County, Warren County, their system of governance at the county level is a board of supervisors. There's not this whole other layer that we have in Schenectady County of a county legislator. I defy anybody in this room to name all 3 of your county legislators. Do you know who? Well, 5. I'm sorry, 5. I defy you to name all 5 of your county legislators. I guarantee you take 1,000 people in this town and pose that quiz, you're not going to get one person to name all 5 except the 5 people who are in that county legislature. It is a hidden layer of government, and it's screwing the towns in this county.
So why don't we leave?
Well, that's a whole, the state's never going to let us.
Why not?
Because the state's going to want to keep Schenectady County intact. They're gonna-
Well, that doesn't mean we have to belong to it. They can keep Schenectady County intact, and we can just say we don't want to be a part of it.
Well, I don't think we're going to be able to leave unless the legislature and the governor and the Secretary of State would allow us to. We can try it, but.
Well, you won't know until you try, right?
We're obviously a cash cow for the county, so they didn't let us leave.
We're going to be defending the bridge on horseback. Yes, ma'am.
The concern that I have though, Chris, is the implication behind all of this is unsustainable.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
But the right answer is not, let's hike up people's property taxes.
Right. Correct.
So what is the answer?
A share, a fairer share from the county. The county needs to open up the agreement, renegotiate it so it's fair for taxpayers. We have some examples coming up where they can do this and be able to sustain that share shift to a fairer share. And we'll get into that in a few minutes, but the county has got to share the sales tax that we're all creating out here. The town of Glenville is a town that's growing.
But will they continue to refuse to do that like they have been for the last 20 years?
I hate to say this. The only way you change your government is by changing your government. I mean, people have got to vote. They have to be engaged. They have to understand who's on what side of this issue. Call your county legislator and ask them, are you willing to look at this issue?
It's going to require some hard decisions at the county. They're going to have to start cutting their budget. If you look at, that budget is online. I encourage you to all go look at that 300 and some page document, because I have, and count the number of salaries at the county level that are $100,000 plus. Count the number of county attorneys in the county attorney's office.
So the next slide, just because I want to keep us a little bit on track, talks about, as a per capita basis, what you're getting in sales tax. So compared to our sister communities, where Queensbury, per person, they're getting $318, Glenville's only getting $121 in sales tax. So you can see a huge disparity here between our sister communities. We have Bethlehem, we look at Albany County, Saratoga County, Warren County. And there's a disparity across the entire region and state.
So why grow?
Well, that's the question.
Exactly.
Why grow? Right.
We don't have to grow.
Right. Because I say that.
I came here 39 years ago because it was a nice small town.
Right.
And, you know, if we're going to grow and we're just going to continue to make the problem worse because nothing's going to change, then why grow?
But I think communities are like living beings. I think you either try to get better each day and grow, or you're going to recede. You're going to get, and I don't want to see community die. You know, when we came in here, well, 8 years ago, our town center was dead. I gotta say, you know, you look around, we had closed, Kmart was an atrocity, we had closed stores everywhere, dark. I think we have to still make our community livable, and I still think we have to do what we can to try to change the dynamics here. The answer is not stop growing. The answer is fix the disparity in the share formula. And that's what I'm trying to, I think that's what we're trying to point out. This one will show you, Jim, hold on to your seat. This one's going to show you
how much Schenectady County has taken over the past, I don't know, 10 years or so compared to Schenectady County, or Town of Glenville. I'll give you a hint. Schenectady County is in orange, and this is the sales tax growth from 03 to 06. They took in somewhere between 300 or 30 and 40 million. Today they're taking in over 60 million. We're down here. Some of it you probably can't see because John's in the way. No, John.
I don't see.
We're down here. So when you say, one of the first things people will say, well, how can the county afford to shift more money to the towns? Look at this tremendous growth here, that there's a ton of resources. If they weren't hoarding them and overspending, can be shifted to the towns. And I think, unfortunately, this next slide is going to show in words, we are the only community in growth between 06 and 16 that's in negative. Schenectady County grew 11% over that time. Saratoga, and this is in sales tax per capita. Look at the Queensbury. Look at Rambius. East Greenbush, 41%.
Can't we become part of Saratoga County?
We could try. But if we even shared at an equal rate, that if we shared that 11% growth this county has been getting, we could be receiving an additional $300,000 per year into our budget. Now you're talking about funding departments. Now you're talking about doing things that you need to do to meet a growing town.
Well, it's exactly almost the amount we're taking out of our fund balance.
Right. At this point, yes.
Well, who decides if we're in Schenectady County or Saratoga County? Who makes that decision?
State of New York. We're under the state, so we have to live within the charter. The state legislature authorized us in 1820. Our first meeting was held in 1821, because we get that question a lot. They authorized us. We live under them, and they decide.
So what if we split New York?
Yeah, that's a bigger.
Where are the towns of like Princetown and Waynesburg and Rotterdam and Niskayuna? Where are they on that Richter scale?
They would be very similar to Glenville. Very
Because
similar to Glenville.
the agreement that's in effect right now, there were only two entities at the table negotiating that agreement. The city of Schenectady and the county of Schenectady. The towns are not allowed to be at that table to negotiate that agreement.
Why?
So sales tax is authorized, the county is authorized by the state of New York, again, to collect sales tax. Prior to the county being authorized, the cities were authorized to do this. In that agreement, and I know, Mike, I'm skipping over a lot of particulars, but in that agreement, some cities could retain their right to collect sales tax. I think Saratoga Springs retains that right. Or they could have thrown in their lot with the county and said, we will give up our right to collect and we'll join you and share your portion. So that made them a party to the agreement. Sales tax, just to be clear and to be fair, is a county levy. They don't have to share it. It just so happens that every county knows that the best thing they can do is share it with local governments because it takes the burden off the property taxpayers. So the city and the county sit down as the parties to the agreement and they do the deal. We all get to go over in the corner and live with whatever they say. Theoretically, your legislator is supposed to be fighting for you at that table. That's where we have the disconnect. That's where we have the failure. Your legislator did not fight for the town. The towns. We didn't put the other two towns in most of these slides because we want to show the disparity. But that one slide I showed puts us pretty much, showed us all in the same boat. Glenville kind of represents the Schenectady towns. They're all having a similar, Niskayuna does a little better because of the formula. Rotterdam is a little worse maybe, but we're all in the same boat in Schenectady County. John?
What if you threaten the county that you're going to go to the state and ask them to reduce what the county can charge? Because the state gets 4%, and the county gets 3%, but they have special permission to get 4%, something like that, right?
Yeah, and then Metroplex is another layer on top of it in Schenectady County.
But if we start making noise in Albany, that might make them a little nervous in Schenectady.
I'd be surprised if the state would.
They probably would list
that.
it.
Right.
Yeah,
But, yes.
How is it that Metroplex is a separate entity that gets a portion?
It was authorized under a different law altogether, away from the sales tax law, and so to fund it, they came up with that funding stream of giving them a sales tax authorization as well.
And is that a corporation? What is Metroplex?
Well, it's an idea.
It's an authority.
It's a public authority.
Public authority. Mark?
Have other counties that were in similar situations where our county gone through this process and able to apply for?
Yeah, so.
How do they go about that? I mean, maybe we can.
I mentioned it earlier, 12 counties have reopened the agreement to make them fair across the state. I don't have that list in front of me, but it has happened over the past 10 years. I think, and maybe not in every case, but I think Jim hit on one of the major components. If we had a board of supervisors, this would not happen. Right. It's the form of government at the county level that is allowing this to happen. It's their own little layer, fiefdom. They can reopen that agreement. It's easy. It's not a big process. We don't have to go to the state. The legislature can reopen that agreement.
When?
Whenever they want. They can sit down with the city and renegotiate a fair
You
agreement.
can count on me calling tomorrow.
Well, thank you. We need a lot of that. This next slide shows the disparity between the CPI and our sales tax share. So as you can see, we're not keeping up with just average expenses. We're not keeping up with the average increase, except for that fateful year, and really that was the 08, crash. We felt the rock on 9.
See, and this is another important point. We are being on a fixed level. Now that means we're not just on a fixed rate, we're on a fixed amount of sales tax revenue for 20 years. So if you apply inflation to that, the buying power of the dollar back in when the agreement was signed has decreased by, I think, 26 cents. I figured it out once.
I think you're right.
So even though we're getting the same money every year, we're really not. There's not even an escalator in there to account for inflation.
Right.
So the dollar that we've been paid in sales tax revenue by the time we get to the year 2020 is going to have about 70% of the buying power it had when the agreement was first signed. So we're in fact having a cut.
So to bring this home to you, this next slide is going to show you real dollars. So when we look at this, there it is. So Queensbury, in real dollars, gets about $8.9 million in sales tax. Wilton, 5.8. We said Clifton Park, 12 million. We said us 2.6, 2.7. Boston, love the town. They're great neighbors. I love the supervisor. He's a wonderful man. They get $2.8 million in sales tax in the town of Boston on a population of 9,000 people. We don't get what they get. They get more money in sales tax than we do. We have 29,000 people.
Well, they belong to Saratoga County.
Well, right, but that highlights a tremendous strain on the Glenville, the Schenectady County resident. When people say to me, "Why are taxes so high in Schenectady County?" This is why. This is exactly why. It's because the county hoards the sales tax.
And the implications of a high real property tax is very, very damaging to your real property value. It depresses and actually decreases your property value, because when you have high real property taxes, people, like I've heard people say to me, "Boy, the houses in Schenectady are cheap to buy." Yeah, wait till you get done paying the mortgage and the taxes. And in many cases, the tax amount is the same, if not more, than their mortgage payment.
And that's an artificial dampener on development. And Jim will back this up. I can't tell you how many developers have talked to me and said, "You know what, the taxes are just too high there. We can't do it there." People hear that in the village all the time. We can't do it here. When we say, "Well, you're doing a project in Clifton Park, why wouldn't you do it here?" Well, the economics are a lot different there. Their property taxes are so much lower. It makes a difference when a retailer is going to decide where to go and open a business. And so as much as we've been doing well, it still dampens development compared to our sister communities.
Chris, do you have an overlay slide that shows the sales tax revenue generated to the county versus what we get, so you can see the disparity of,
Well, that-
say, what town Glenville brings in versus what town Boston brings in versus what we're actually receiving.
So Schenectady County will not report where the sales tax comes from by town. Conveniently.
Chris, can we get legally somehow the chief financial officer from Target, Walmart, and Lowe's tell us what they pay in sales tax for the 3 locations in Glenville?
Well, we can get that through.
Question B, is there some way we can enact our own local tax and say, you 3 guys, you exceed 100,000 square feet of retail, you exceed so many acres of land in the town of Glenville, therefore, we're at you to your sales tax number, another 10%.
The state does not allow us to enact a sales tax. We can't even enact a event tax down at the hotel. So any tax, any authority for us to assess the tax would have to be given to us by the state legislature. So we have the authority on property tax, but we cannot do a sales tax, cannot do a bed tax, cannot do any other tax at all. That's why this is so important. It is our only other revenue.
And Dick, we put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage. Those stores over the course of time would begin to fail. I'm telling you, this is all going to come down to a discussion at the county level of containing the cost of county government. This is what it's going to come down to. This is where this discussion is going to go.
That would be a 5 minutes, right?
So just to get on to because we have a few more slides to get
Can I
to.
get a copy of this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll be online. It'll be online.
The whole thing?
Yes, I have the PDF ready to go. And there's going to be another one. We'll give you some other dates for the other one. This one kind of just illustrates the percent of sales tax revenue to expenses. So as you can see, again, it's very easy to see the orange is property tax, and the orange is sales tax, and the blue is property tax. Glenville relies on the property tax, just like every Schenectady town, where Saratoga towns, for example, in Warren County, get most of their revenue from the sales tax. So that's a huge disparity. This next slide will just show you that Schenectady County received $82.5 million. In 2016, we got $1.79 million of that. That's a huge disparity there. If Schenectady were to be like Albany, we would receive $2.8 million more every year, and the homeowner would save $286 per year in their town taxes. And if we were like Saratoga County, we would get $480 more in town tax every year, each resident. And there would be no town outside our highway tax at all, and our fund balance would be eliminated in the highway appropriation.
And that second point right there, that's the whole reason for this argument. That's it right there. That second bullet, if we had the Saratoga County agreement, that brings it home for the average resident in this town. You would save $480 instantly a year in taxes off your tax bill.
Be no town tax, essentially. Now, just on top of this, I want to just remind everyone, the county is starting to receive their $2.5 million in extra money on impact money from the casino, and the city of Schenectady is receiving their $2.5 million. So the two entities that are hoarding all the sales tax are also hoarding every cent of the impact money. And then the county was supposed to say, well, you know what, we'll share that with the towns. But they haven't done that. They haven't shared it with the towns. So we'll get into some of those.
All the towns together, file lawsuits.
Well, again, Glenville right now is the only town talking about this issue. And there's a reason for that.
And just in the infinite wisdom of New York State and that casino sale or casino impact money, town of Glenville gets zero.
Right.
And you can throw a baseball from across the river and hit the roof of the casino. You want to know how much Washington County gets? Washington County, $130,000 a year.
Yes.
Washington County from the Schenectady County Casino. Really?
Yeah, so other counties, Albany County, Washington County, Schoharie County, I think gets it. Montgomery County gets it. Other counties get it, but the towns within that are affected by it don't get it.
So what makes Glenville the black sheep then?
Well, again, we're not. We're the only one willing to stand up and say, this is happening. Niskayuna should be saying the same thing. Rotterdam should be saying the same thing.
But are they not because they feel like they're faring well out of this? And
They
so
get more
that
property tax from GE and from GERT.
What is it?
I just have to say, yes, I don't want to have to say
No,
it.
I'll say it. I'll be a lot more blunt. I'll be a lot more blunt than Chris is willing to be.
Political party.
I'll be a lot more blunt than Chris is willing to be. Niskayuna town government is dominated by Democrats. The county legislature is dominated by Democrats. This is putting party first and people second.
Rotterdam is
How does that
dominated.
make a difference, though? How does that make a difference?
It is a power base.
But if it's the economy and the money that's being discussed, what is, what?
And again, I don't want to get into a political
fairness.
conversation in the budget form, but it's what master you serve. Everyone has to decide what master they serve. And I'm not going to speak for whatever master they decided to serve. But you have to draw your own conclusion on that. The evidence, all I can do is show you the numbers. You all have to draw your own conclusion on why people are acting the way they're acting. I can't tell you.
Chris, how long is the casino impact going to last? Is that like a tiered down thing, or is that a continuous thing?
Forever.
Forever?
Yeah.
And the same amount?
I think it's a 10-year agreement.
Yeah.
So it's not a tiered down amount, it's the same, they're going to do, they're going to
Well,
$5 million?
it's a function of their revenue or whatever. So whatever that revenue is, yeah. This next slide will show you how Schenectady actually spends more than other counties. And so you look at Saratoga County, here's the spending difference between Schenectady County and Saratoga County in 2015. Saratoga County spent $1,283 per person. We spent $2,009 per person. That's $726 more per person than Saratoga County.
But look at the
And you look at the population, Saratoga, man, we gotta talk it down. Saratoga spent the $291 million on 227,000. We spent more on less.
That
That's
right
the problem.
there is, that's the issue. That is the issue.
But Chris, isn't this the time now?
Yes, sir.
Because I see it with Schenectady. Obviously, they've got a certain spending level, and they're used to a certain level of spending. But now, all of a sudden, they're getting the casino money.
Yes.
So before they get used to spending that money too, let's fix the allocation while it hurts less. Because as soon as they get used to spending all the money the casino's giving them, it's going to be even harder for them to change and make the formula work.
This is the time. This is why we have to reopen it.
What would be a very interesting calculation to make, and you can sit there all in the audience and do it. Take 154,000 people and multiply it times the 1283 that's Saratoga County's spending, and that's what we should be spending in Schenectady County to give county government services. Saratoga County's figuring out a way to do it somehow.
And they're similar counties, but we found a county that's even more similar, Rensselaer County. We said, well, how do we do against our sister over in Rensselaer County? Not so great. We're blue, they're red, they're orange on spending. Our county attorney's office, their county's attorney's office, our DA's office, their DA's office, and so forth and so on. Board of Elections. We are outspending Rensselaer County in every category. Social Service Administration. This is not benefits paid. This is the administration of our social services program. That means people, jobs working for the county. Schenectady, 17 million. Rensselaer, 13.4 million. We're spending almost more than $3 million.
Well, why isn't state government looking at these counties?
I have no idea.
And saying,
State government's really good at looking at things and reporting them. And then we have to figure out what to do. But you know what? We're doing what we should be doing. We're fighting for it. Really, the community has to fight for it. It's not the state. It's not anyone else. It's us. And that's what we're doing. But right now, we're the sole voice.
but the state has to hold the county accountable.
Yeah.
Not you and not the guy over in Rotterdam.
Right.
The state should be all over the counties.
The government, if the governor really wants to fix local property tax problems, but to be fair to the state, this is really only happening in Schenectady. You gotta fix the sheriff formula, and that will fix it in Schenectady.
Chris, what's the difference in population here between Schenectady County and Rensselaer?
Almost identical.
Almost identical.
Rensselaer County has 5,000 more.
How many people are on welfare in Schenectady County?
That I don't know. But every other similarity about the counties, or their city sizes, Troy and Schenectady are fairly similar. There's a lot of, they're very similar. We didn't look at that factor, but everything else, population-wise.
All I can tell you on that, the last time I looked, it's been a couple of years, Schenectady County spends 48 cents out of every dollar that Schenectady County spends is on the provision of social services.
So when people say, well, how's the county going to be able to, Dave just talked about now's the time with the new revenue coming in, $2.5 million, actually $5 million between the two entities. Here's another place that we can look. I am sure you could find efficiencies in there. I'm absolutely positive you can find efficiencies in there. You know what? It's the county government's job to do it. I can lead them there, but they're going to have to figure out how to make that happen. So you would think with all the money they're receiving that at least their levy on you as property taxpayers would be okay. But look at the growth in their levy. This is the town down here. This is the county. Even in the face of hoarding all that sales tax, remember all those big orange bars they're hoarding? They're still hoarding even more in levies. County levy against you. So their spending is really, they have a huge appetite when you look at, they're taking it from all places. And so just to show you some of the increases, when you talk about your tax bill, the tax burden here, Schenectady County, total increases, it's hard to read, 2,197. 155. This is the town of Glenville, we're down here. So they're hitting you much harder on the levy than the town of Glenville. Their 5-year increase, 16.1 in the levy, ours is 8.4. Half, roughly half of what the county has done. Even though they're hoarding all the sales tax, and we're getting essentially none of it. When you look at the village and you look at the other entities, their 5-year levy increase, $101, ours $28, the county $105. The county and the village have almost the identical levy increase over the last 5 years. Well, we're down here. We're doing so much more with so much less. And that's one of the points I wanted to point out today. When you look at this, Glenville has the lowest tax burden between Scotia, the town, and the county. If you're a Scotia resident, you're paying $1,400 to the village, $923 to the county, and $128 to the town if your house is valued at about $116,000. So that's just an example.
So for years, wasn't the town's county, if I get this right, county legislator Jim Tedisco?
No, he was an assemblyman, and he was and he's a senator now.
I know he's a senator now.
He
But
was a senator.
as a legislature, he could now represent this area.
He represented this area in the state, in the assembly, state assembly, not at the county level.
So he couldn't have done anything about this.
Not as a one member of the assembly. No. This is really, as we've been saying, this is really a county. The county has to change their agreement formula. It's all on the county.
So who's my county legislator?
Well, that's the test that we're going to give. We want to know how many people can name the county legislators.
I can't.
You can't. Who can? Who can name 5 county legislators? I got $5.
Brenda doesn't count.
Let the record show not one resident can name the county legislator. Not the town employees.
I'm just going to speak now. I've been like sitting here quietly, because I can actually name 4 out of the 5. And the reason why I can definitely name 3 of them is because 3 of them are up for re-election in November. And I know that very personally because I'm one of the 3 people that are running against them. And we've been working really closely with Chris to get a good handle on this issue, which just sickens me and mortifies me every time I think about it. And that's one of the reasons that we decided that was so critical for us to really run. Now, again, we've been working very closely with the town of Glenville. Unfortunately, we're not as welcome, we don't have a close working relationship with Niskayuna because our district actually includes Glenville and Niskayuna. So District 3, so your county legislatures also represent Niskayuna. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that close working relationship with that town. However, if their town government isn't interested, I'm pretty certain the residents are going to be interested in this. So we're going to try our very best to get this information out to many of these unit residents, because let's face it, I mean, they're like us, and they're going to be, just
Who are
outraged
you?
with this. I'm Loretta Raymond,
And you're running for what?
county legislature, representing Glenville and Muskegon.
Who are you running against?
Kathy Gatta, Grant Socha, there's three of us running. Kathy Gatta, Grant Socha, and Lori Ferlin are all up for reelection.
Socha?
Socha?
Are you kidding?
Why don't we go back to this? Why don't we go back to this, and we'll get to that other piece of it afterwards. Let's keep it as a budget forum, and let's just, I'm gonna even skip a slide just to try to keep us on this. So, we'll talk about that in a little while. So, before I get to the highlights of this budget, everyone says, if we're gonna go out and ask for them to reopen the sales tax formula, everyone says, well, how are they gonna do it? I think we've heard already tonight from a few. Dave mentioned now is the time. There's $5 million of new money coming into both the city and the county. We should not forget that we are asking for them to look at the share of new sales tax. So it's growth money coming into them. It's not the same amount of money they're getting every year. It's growing exponentially. And so I think just carving out a fair share out of that should be easy enough. You have to also, I think, look at a few other things, like asking them to pay for their own county functions. Things like central dispatch is a county function now, but it is not in the county budget. The county makes the towns pay for county dispatch, and that's not right. We even pay for the increases now. They're sending us increases every year, when impact money should be used for those increases, and it's not being used for that. Board of Elections is not paid, it's a county function, but it's not paid for by the county. They bill the towns to run Board of Elections. That's not right. And I think that's unusual for most counties. They want to buy a new communication system. Chief, I think, what was it, $2 million or something? To allow the police departments and the fire departments countywide to talk to each other. That's a great idea. I believe in it wholeheartedly. But they want to charge the towns to pay for the system. It's a countywide system. That should be paid for out of impact money. So there are plenty of places we can go in their budget and find this money. They can get their spending in line. I just showed you, they spend $8 million more than Rensselaer County on the same functions. $8 million more than a sister community right next door to us. So there are these areas when we talk about this where they can find this money to renegotiate a fair share. I bring up the sales tax for, I bring it up not because I thought it was going to be such a hot button, but because it is such an important piece to our budget. I talked about this. We have two major problems. Our expenses are out of control and we can't slow them down. And our sales tax share is not fair, so it all comes down to the levy. But this budget, I have good news. This budget is in pretty good shape.
Chris, I think it's important to clarify, we do what we can to control our spending.
Oh, yes.
It's not out of control because we have no control over it, but there are certain things, unfunded mandates that are pressed upon us by higher levels of government that we cannot control because we have no say.
Right.
So it's important to know that we're not, we're not out of control because we are not trying to be.
That's a good distinction. That's absolutely true.
I know it's semantics, but.
No, but it's true. That's a good point. So this budget will cut another $1.2 million in debt, which we're very excited about, because that's going to again help us in our operational. It's going to cut a dependency on the fund balance by another $65,000, not quite where we all want to be, but we're getting there. Reduce our operational costs, secure new revenue, that's what we're working on, what we want to do. If this budget holds, we're about 1.84, which is just, our cap is 2.4, so we're below the cap, actually. And it would be about a $6 impact per year to our average homeowner if this budget stays, the budget I submit stays to the board, which will come out by October 1st. And then we can talk about the schedule after that. Challenges ahead. We have a few. We have an expired
contract with the PBA. Anytime you have an expired contract, it is not good because it introduces uncertainty into the budget. Uncertainty is not good for a budget because it automatically makes everybody conservative and constrict and worried about what's coming and start trying to plan for it. So uncertainty in the budget is not good. This contract will be expired a year at the end of this year. That's not good. If we get that done, then that will help us with the budget.
Why isn't it done?
Two sides have to agree. You have to sit down, and you have to talk, and you have to agree.
Well, did you?
We're working on it.
That's not an answer.
Well, it's the truth, that's the answer we have, we're working on it.
But you've been working on it for a year.
So it must be incredibly difficult.
Now you sound like Congress.
Retirement payouts continue to stress the budget. We paid out over $500,000 in the past 4 years. That's just cash out the door. That's tough to absorb. But we did.
Is that buying sick days and stuff?
Yeah. Whatever someone had in the time bank that they took out the room when they retired. Tax cap constraints, we're constrained by the tax cap. As you saw, it's 2.4. I'm at about 1.84, but we're trying to stay within the tax cap. We've always stayed within the tax cap. It's getting more and more difficult, especially when you don't get sales tax share. Health insurance. This is what I really meant when I said costs are out of control. We cannot control this line. It's going up 9%. I think we just heard almost 10% the other day by one of our carriers. This has been on, and that was that slide I showed you where salaries are going like this and benefits are going like that. That is what I mean by we cannot control that. We have to take whatever increase comes our way based on the contract we have with the carrier, based on what our employees have for benefits.
So when does that contract expire?
Well, it's tough, but
When is the contract with the health insurance company?
we get our annual increases every year.
With the same company?
Yeah.
Well, why can't you just go to another company?
Because we have contractual obligations in our labor agreements.
Here we go again.
Yes. And when a labor agreement expires,
I have lots of them.
just so everybody, this is why we do this. Just when a labor agreement expires, the provisions stay in they do not expire with the contract. So
I understand
okay.
that, but why do you have to use the same company for the benefit?
Because the contract tells us with the labor union what we have to provide. And
I'm
until
not
that
saying that, I'm
changes,
saying the actual company that provides the benefit.
because that is written in, the company is written in the contract.
So why does the union want to use the same company?
Because they provide good service.
I don't know, it's not on that side of the table. I don't know. There's only so many health insurance companies too. You got ADP, CPHP, Blue Cross. There's only so many to choose from. Growth in the tax base requires additional services. This is what we talk about all night. We are having impacts on public safety. We are having impacts on our infrastructure. We are having impacts on our highway and our DPW services. But we are not receiving the same level of resources from that growth to pay for it. And that's a huge challenge. And the revenue share. It is unfair. Sales tax, and if you can't see that because it's too low, casino impact money. This has got to get fixed. That has got to get fixed. I will say that, as you can see from the slides, I think this board has done an incredible job over the past 8 years of containing your costs. We have contained the costs where we can. We've made some difficult decisions to contain costs, unfortunately. Some maybe we might not have wanted to make under a different situation, but we had to make them. One of the things we did when we first came in here 8 years ago was working with our comptroller, stop looking at the budget as a one-year snapshot. Everybody does the budget and says, okay, well, that's it. We'll come back next year and do this again and see what happens. We ask for modeling. We ask for 5 years out, 5 years back, so that we can see what's coming and try to react to it before it comes. That's why we're in the position we're in. Strong financial position, no question about it. But that's why these challenges are so important. We're trying to trend out and say, benefits is going to break, not just our town, every town, but benefit line is going to break us. The lack of revenue share is going to kill us. These are the challenges that we're trying to face. So as employee costs continue to rise in the face of stagnant revenue growth, you will continue to see ever-increasing levy increases. You just can't get to a zero under these circumstances. Unless municipalities use their fund balance, do one-shots or other gimmicks to artificially keep the levy adjustment down, which other communities have done, the levy is just going to continue to rise. So that's all the information I have for you tonight. My portion would have been done in a half hour, but Jim's took another half hour. Dick?
Just Google connecting county legislature, there are 15 of them.
Yes.
10 are Democrats, 2 are Republicans, and 3 are C, I guess it's communists.
Conservative.
I think that answers the question that came up previously, that you unfortunately
There are five from this district, so the districts are broken up between the city and the towns, and the 5 from this district cover Glenville, Scotia, and Niskayuna.
Is that District 3?
District 3.
They're all up for real.
Yes, sir.
So you said that on the slide, the fire slide, that you're looking for new revenue sources. What are they? I mean, is it just a renegotiation of this, and that's the only avenue for additional revenue? If that doesn't come to pass, then the numbers you have as far as the increase goes out the window.
Right. No, this increase, what we're talking about this year, the 1.84, is with the understanding of our current agreement. So we're not looking for new revenue.
This is a potential upside.
This is a projection out. Within 5 years, if we don't get this agreement redone, and those health insurance costs continue to rise, then it's the levy. It's going to have to go to the levy or fund balance. A lot of towns will use fund balance on one-shots. The problem is this town did that. I would say it was almost 20 years ago, maybe at this maybe 17 years ago, and that was a big 40% tax increase. If you all remember that. That's because they used the fund balance and it never replenished. It's like using your savings account. You know, one day you go to pay your mortgage and that money's gone. You got to get it somewhere. We're only authorized to do so much. We can't get into, investment banking. We can't get into anything else. We can't sell things other than property. The only thing we do is levy a property and hope for a share of sales tax. We get the mortgage tax, which is very little. Those lines.
So one other question. So other than going to polls, what can we do to help?
Well, I mean, obviously the first hope is that we get the ear of the county legislators and you all, they answer you. So I ask people to reach out to the legislators and ask for a hearing. All we're asking for is a meeting. Come to the meeting and let's talk about it. First. Jim has had a lot of ideas of going to the other towns and going to the county legislators right at the meeting and talking to them. Let's just all get together in a room and talk about it. That's step 1.
Is the presentation that you've done tonight the same one that you're going to do with the senior center?
Yeah, senior center next Thursday at 7 o'clock. And then for anyone during the day, 2 o'clock the following Thursday at senior center again, 2 o'clock. Same thing.
So, after listening to this, I think it's fantastic that you guys have kind of maintained a low or helped us taxes for so long. And I heard a lot of everybody kind of complaining about the whole sales tax piece. But it still doesn't address the kind of ongoing issue that we still have to take care of our roads. We still have to take care of the safety in the town and do all of that stuff. And yes, it's still going to be on the back of us taxpayers. Because the reality is, and I think we all know it, the county's not going to change what they're doing anytime soon. We just don't have the numbers in there to change that. So again, I don't complain about my town taxes. Maybe people do, but as you saw in there, it's 10 cents on the dollar. And what we get for that is the stuff that we see every day. When we're driving on our roads in our neighborhoods and and when we're down in town center, it is our local people that we are seeing, and it's the services that the town is providing that is doing all of that. So, so if that costs me, a couple more cents a year to cover those costs in the town, I guess I'm not going to complain because I'm getting those services. The problem, I think, is, and as you've shown, you the personnel by what, 25%? Or, and granted, a lot of those were UCC, the PSAP went over. But we have seen that growth. And I think she brings up a good point. Well, why grow? Why grow if it's really in the end costing us? Because in order to grow, we need to add the services that are going to support that growth. If we don't add those services that support that growth, that's, I think, when we begin to fall apart. So I think I implore you to just take a real good hard look at what services are really needed here, and not to the point of stressing those services to the breaking point, because we don't want a highway department that has all angry employees because they don't feel like that whatever it is, whatever value they get out of their jobs, that they aren't getting that satisfaction. I mean, we're Glenville. We're a town of what? Town of good neighbors. I don't know what's on our side, but we know everybody. So we and the people that work in our town, we know them. So it is a big family, and I understand the rising insurance costs and the other ancillary mandates that come along with operating the town, but I think we live here for a reason. And part of that is the services that we get. Otherwise, you know what? We could go to Clifton Park and not have the police department and have them respond a half an hour later to my burglary call. Or I can live in Glenville and have them there in 2 minutes.
I don't disagree with a lot of your premise and what you're saying. And obviously, as a town, our first, we have a few prime objectives, right? First is to be fiscally responsible. Second is to have a delivery service that we can all afford, and everyone wants to pay for. And I appreciate what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying. Just please understand that for everything you're saying, there's other people saying the complete opposite. And our job is to figure it all out and do the best we can for everybody. But one thing I do want to take, one argument you do make that I just want to take a little exception with is the lobster in the pot argument. You can't sit there and say, I'm okay with going here, and then I'm okay with going here, then I'm okay with going here. Because this here, this very thing, that's exactly that argument. If you look at the history of health insurance in particular, it was only given to the employer back in the 30s during the Depression when the employers couldn't give raises. So instead of giving raises, they came up with this scheme of giving them something. During World War II, when they had a labor shortage because everyone was going off to war, the government was afraid that businesses were going to jack wages to try to get different laborers because there wasn't enough laborers. So they put a wage freeze, and they all came up with this idea to give health insurance because health insurance was pennies. And everybody said, what's a few pennies? What's a few pennies? Now, granted, 60 years go by, and here we are. Here we are. I'm not going to be responsible for being at some point when I'm not here anymore, and it's someone else's problem. That's not my mentality. I'm going to deliver the most efficient government I can, all the services I can, in an affordable manner. And we're going to do that. And we may have disagreements on the service levels as to what, one of the things, I'm a big LEAF guy. I love the LEAF program. I will never cut the LEAF program. I made a career on the LEAF program. I used to call it Mr. LEAF when I saved it. But people say, cut the LEAF program. We don't have that LEAF to pick up anymore. That'll save us a lot of money. I said, no, I don't think we should do that. I think we need to deliver these services. So I agree with you, but everybody has a different idea about where they're comfortable. That's all I ask you to think about when you make that argument. Because I have to hear from other people the exact opposite. And I understand their argument too. But I do not buy into the
hey, what's the big deal, it's another couple extra cents. We have to be responsible with our budget. Even if it's the smallest piece of that dollar, we have to be responsible, because we expect the county to be equally responsible.
So I guess I'm not disagreeing with that we need to be responsible for that. But if the goal is to change the county, if this big goal is to change the county, if we subsidize for a year, 2 years, in order to give us enough time, once the county comes around to 40 or 50% of the sales tax revenue, great. We're all going to get our money back because our taxes are going to go down.
You just worry the county might be like, well, they're gonna do this and get themselves by, we'll just keep doing that and we'll have any money.
I don't know what truly with the county, I don't know what they would ever see to agree. I mean, why would they ever want to change the formula? I mean, that's the other thing, what's in their interest?
Because they're elected by these people.
Right.
I think the important part of this is, you look at the road here, and you have 30 people on the road. I commend Chris and the board for putting together a presentation like this. I've lived in the town for a lot of years, and up until 4 or 5 years ago, I just paid my tax bill. I didn't really care because I didn't bother me. I could afford to pay, I pay. When I started to look at the breakdown that Chris breaks and showing the inequities that are there, this is the message that we need to get out to the taxpayers in this town, so that you're banding together and you're going to the county and you're saying, county, this is a bunch of crap. Let's do something to change it. That's what we got to do, and we got to spread it, whether it's through social media or through individual contact or conversations with neighbors. That's what we got to do, because we can't keep going with this. We need to change it, and we have to band together. We really have to band together as a town.
And to add on to that, it really, the bottom line is, it really becomes a moral and ethical argument. It really does.
Absolutely.
How anybody can justify what's going on in these other towns and what's going on in Glenville is unconscionable.
Right, absolutely, I agree with you.
Well, I don't want another Cleveland Park,
No, I agree.
but I do want twinkles.
I was gonna say, you want the $20 million.
Where's my twinkles in?
200 but
Just 3 quick things. One, not because we bring the room around. The police department in Glenville, every time we've had a situation in Outlaws, they've been quick to respond. They've been professional to the utmost. So I just want to make sure that was said while you guys are in the room. We don't get a chance to see that much. Again, thank you for
You guys.
your service.
We agree.
So with that being said, the state tax piece, the sales tax piece is compelling. And I think that anybody in Glenville is more than willing, once you get the word out, to vote and confront our legislators, even if you know them or you don't. And if you don't know them, come to my house on 4th of July, because we have a little scavenger hunt. We have little kids running around and find out who the legislators are. So if by chance, for some reason, people laugh at that because we got the selfies online.
That's right.
So the question I have is, if by chance, for some reason, this does not take effect, or does not happen right away, there seems to be a process. We are relying on property tax. So there's that 800-pound gorilla in the room again. What is the town's view in regards to this budget, in regards to the future development in this area? Again, Outlaws has this situation, as you all know. And I'm going to go further on. You can go online and find out what's going on. But is that something that is going to be the future of our town? Where we have to, in order to generate revenue, we have to go into these large development procedures, even in little communities, just so we can compensate for our inequities and our shortcomings.
I don't see a lot of large-scale development coming in residential in the next couple of years. I don't see, in fact, one of the challenges I didn't get into, to really deep down in the challenges, is a lot of our park system is primarily financed by the subdivision fees. So when subdivisions come in, they pay a chunk of money to fund our parks, and we pretty much live off that for capital improvements. One of the challenges I've been putting forward to the board is I don't see large subdivisions coming into the town anymore. We're pretty much subdivided. And so we have to find a new way to fund our parks. So when you think about, and again, Ross, I agree with what you're saying, and
and you're right, we have to fund things properly. There's more than just one department, or two departments you brought up, that need to be funded properly. Parks is not a tree. It's not good at parks to it, but parks. But there's a variety of others as well, and there's challenges. So, what I'm supremely confident in is telling this board has been extremely effective over the past 8 years of getting this budget to where it is right now. And while I'm on it for a minute, I got to thank Jason for all his hard work on these slides, and Jim provided a ton of the data crunching for these slides as well. It's a great board. I'm confident we're going to meet these challenges, but we're only going to be here so long, and you trend things out. 10 years from now, where are we going to be if we don't have that sales tax? We don't have that growth in the property tax base that we have now.
But does that, and again, I really follow up on it, but if by chance the sales tax does happen to be changed, if that rule is changed, does that affect large-scale property projects similar to what's going on in Alpos? Does that change anything? Does that...
Potentially. I mean, if we're a more attractive town, by way of having a lower property tax, then potentially more people...
So the need for a large project like that is not a necessity?
Right.
So for every dollar of property tax that comes in, how much of that goes for the services that we need to provide for the population that then needs more fire, police protection, sewer, all that? Where's that, how's that balance work out in the budget?
Well, let me just say first, the fire department has their own levy, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes with Mr. Lawson. Just kidding. Smile, Ross, smile.
Oh, I know.
So your question is, for every dollar, where does it go?
So when you talk about why grow, we need to grow because we need to have property tax because we're not going to get it from sales tax. But as you grow in development, you have to grow your services. So what is that cost balance for, if you get X number of dollars in your property tax, if you need to provide more services, are you really increasing your spending?
Well, so let's go to that slide that showed, what slide showed that? Almost there. Up more? No, the one that showed the tax base growth. No. So let's go with, say we're developing, we got it here. It's a tax base expanded by $59 million. Okay, so we get out of that, out of the 10 years of that growth, we get $215,000 in new spending. Okay? So throw at me a scenario, what do you want to do? So we got 250, we're growing. We could take Ross's scenario, he wants more employees. How many, where?
What do they need? Say 10.
10? This is not the fire department, boss. Come on.
All right.
Let's take 3. Can we do 3?
Let's say one.
Let's say 1. 3 what? You want 3 police officers, 3 highway, what do you want?
3 police officers.
3 police officers. All right, I'm going to have to rely on Jason to help me with the cost. So 3 police officers, first-year officers, all benefits, all in.
First-year officers? First year, roughly 80 to 85,000.
All 3.
For one.
Oh, he's the comptroller of the town, so he counts all the money, makes sure everything's budgeted correct, he knows all the numbers and everything. He's the guy we go to with all the math. So,
I think I would go with the average once you get to.
Okay, so the average.
Yes, but if you just give, instead of getting new employees.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
We want to just finish up on this example. So before we go to different choices.
But this is important.
Yeah.
Instead of getting new employees, where then you have all these benefits that we can't afford, why not just do overtime?
They still get the benefit. If you get overtime, you're getting paid time and a half. And then your pension when you retire is based on your final.
Plus,
Even overtime, you get those down.
right, you have only so many hours people can work. So let's give on the example, average for the 3 employees.
I would say the average police officer, this is going to be from first year officer all the way to chief, take the average. Salary and benefits is $150,000 per year per officer.
$450,000.
How much?
$450,000 to the budget.
Oh, to the budget now.
Higher tier.
For 3.
Just follow me.
150.
Follow me.
Just follow me.
150 is fair.
Okay, so that's that's $450,000 to the budget. We've only gotten $215,000 in our growth factor. So to answer your question, because you asked how much do you get, where does it go? If you wanted to add people, you're going to have to figure out above and beyond your growth, your new revenue, where that revenue comes from. And we all know now, after going through this, it's the left. It's the left. $450,000 levy impact is what? You gotta mention it.
5.5%, 6%.
5.5%, 6%. People around me about 2. People around me about 2. So just to frame it and keep it in your minds. I think that answered your question. Is that the question? Kind of.
Yes.
Jay?
Just a quick, the 150 is a little high.
Well, we just did an average.
Yeah, well, I know, because the sheet, it's about for the highest paid, it's about 120. So if you were to average everybody else.
That you're talking salary.
No, I'm talking about the sheet we get every year that says how much we actually cost the town.
Mean with benefits and all?
Whatever, the newsletter? No. Every year we get a breakdown of how much we actually cost the town. So mine at top paid is like 120. So for a new guy, 150, I don't know where that would come from.
We just took the average. And that is the average.
But if I'm the highest, at 120, how do we get to 150?
I'm not sure you are.
Well, anyway, it's fair based upon the quality of the service that we get from the police department. And I have no relatives or friends.
And we're not thinking on anyone either. We're just stating, I mean, people want to know math, that's the math. Highway is less. Highway would be about 100.
I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with other things. And that's not one of them. And the contract should be finalized. Otherwise, we're going to lose good people.
We're working on the contract.
You know me,
Anything else? Anybody else? Ross? You look like you wanted to say something.
No, it goes into more, I would have broken it down to like 150, like what percent of a typical employee's benefits. So is it 40% of their average salary or?
How much is benefits?
Yeah.
Again, on an officer or on the highway?
Let's say a highway.
I think that's 40, 45%.
So when you're looking at an employee, you're tacking on another 40%. But that's, just so we have an idea when we're.
Right. We said it wasn't the salaries, it was all in.
Right, yeah, and that's all in money out.
I'd rather see less money go to the school budget because they never start at 0. They always start at where they left off. And there are programs in there that they no longer do. They no longer provide, but it goes into the general fund. And then you just keep adding on and adding on and adding on. So I would rather see a school budget that you have to start at 0 and tell me what you really need. I have yet to vote yes for a school budget.
Yes.
I've yet to vote yes. I don't, because they don't start at 0. Sorry.
Anybody else? Any other questions on this? Thank you so much for coming for this. I hope it was helpful in education. And thank you for Jason and Jim in particular for all the work. Give them a round of applause. Give me a minute just to get out of this. And we'll get back to the board meeting. Almost like we could have a board meeting.
I have to say, this was very enlightening.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. We're coming to more. No, we still have more meeting left.
We do.
Yeah, the fun doesn't end.
Is this where I find out where my coat is?
No.
You want to flood in the town, here you are.
Just bring this back. Put this right here. All right, so we're back to the agenda, and we're on Resolution 9, a resolution calling for a public hearing to consider a waiver regarding the road for Rosemere to be held on September 20th, 2017. Do you have a motion? Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, as you stated, this resolution would set a public hearing for September 20th at 7 p.m. here at Town Hall, 18 Leonard Road, to consider, to your comment on the proposed Rosemere Road private road extension.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, would it be possible to get a mapping of that in it? You know, because I'd like to understand the nature of the access of the drive. I've heard some things tonight I'd like to...
I think we could have Tom come into the work session with that next week.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And is it also possible to have Mr. Hines in attendance for that? Because I think some of these people are seriously impacted by this. It seems as though there's conditions that were supposedly agreed to.
That's what I mean.
Or he may or may not, so I'd like to see him in.
He's here tonight, so I think he'll be here.
He'll be here to answer questions on the 20th?
We're here now, yes, if you like.
Well, we're going to wait for the highway superintendent and do it at a work session.
I'd like to have a map before we get into all that. I don't have the details.
Okay, so we're on the resolution. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittawani?
Yes.
Councilman Howell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Capson?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 10, authorizing the attorney of the town to enter into an agreement with Mohawk Holdings regarding a certiorari proceeding. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion? Is that me?
Yeah, that's me.
Mike, you want to give us, didn't get to that. Want to give us background on that?
Right, well, Melwick Holdings is what we usually refer to as dimension steel fabricators. So that property used to be talking where Super Steel was housed years ago. They purchased this property after Super Steel went out of business. And they have filed a tax cert proceeding going back to 2015, so we have 3 years of tax cert proceedings that we're looking to resolve with this. Both parties, both the town and the petitioner, under the direction of the court, obtained appraisals, professional appraisal services on these properties, and then after we had the opportunity to review all of the appraisals, again, with some court guidance, we met with the assessor, the attorney for the other party, and we believe we've have a tentative resolution to this tax cert that is fair to both parties. The essential issue that came about here was whether certain of these huge cranes that were within the facility, those that were 10, 15, 30, and 50-ton cranes were fixtures, or whether they're part of real property. I think all of the appraisals that we got all agreed that they were not, although some of the supporting structures were, and that's where the compromise came about.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on that? Please call the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittawani?
Yes.
Councilman Howell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 11, approving the town board minutes for June 21st. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record the votes.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hamel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 12, approving the town board minutes for July 12th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
You have to abstain on that one, you're absent.
Okay.
Stay in this.
Abstain.
I tried that last time, and you wouldn't let me.
Councilman Hamel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution is add-on resolution 1, a resolution providing for the hiring of auto maintenance workers for seasonal employees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hamel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution is add-on 2, a resolution to fill a current vacancy as a position of labor in the Glenville Highway Department. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution, just for the public to be aware of the business that we're conducting, this resolution, if it passed, would then appoint Matthew Trifficante as a seasonal laborer. He's coming from seasonal labor with appointment to the position of laborer, a starting rate of $14.91 per hour, and it's as determined by the agreement between the town and the Highway Department Employees Association. And this would have
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Hamel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. We're going to go to new business next, and then we'll take a resolution, go to executive session to discuss a negotiation item. We don't anticipate coming back out after that, so you're free to stay, but I wouldn't advise it. And I'll start with new business on my left with Councilman Hamel. Any new business?
No new business.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski.
I don't have any new business, but I would like to thank all the residents and the police officers that have come, and the employees, Jason and also Arnold, for coming this evening and sitting not only through the budget presentation, but the other discussions that were held. It's very often that we don't have very many people in the room with us, and whether you agree with us or not, if you're here to learn and you're here to know about what we do, I personally appreciate that. And I would just like to thank everybody that was here and expressed an opinion. I personally, I've been on the board for 7 years now, almost 8, and I've always learned something from meetings like this, where we have a high level of participation from the people that live and enjoy our town just like I do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Martin.
I'd just like to echo those comments, and as you can see, I get quite animated over the sales tax issue. But it's because it's important. You know, I decided to get involved in this capacity because, the real property tax is a particular issue in this community, and this goes to the heart of that issue. And so I hope you all get engaged. There's a lot of information out there. Look at your county budget, look at the budget of neighboring towns, and see what's going on out there, and get engaged. And I would personally love to see people march on county office building. I mean it. I mean, this has got to change. It's absolutely ludicrous what is going on with that sales tax agreement.
Councilman Martin.
I echo the same feelings, but I have no new business.
I just want to take an opportunity to give a few dates out there, some things coming up that we should all be aware of. But first, I want to echo the comments here. I want to thank everybody for their participation here. This is something that I take very passionately as well, and very seriously. And I love the discussions and the different points of view, and we all have different ideas. And I know, Bonnie, you love me deep down. I know you do. You won't admit it yet, but you do. But I want to thank everyone for participating, because it is super important. We don't have to do these forums. This is unusual. What other town does this? There is no other town that does this. Because we do want that engagement, we do want that feedback, and so I'm very thankful that you're all here for that tonight. And I did run into Ross here at Town Hall, and I said, Ross, come to this and voice your opinion, and now I'm sorry I ever said anything. Love you, Ross. A few of the dates that we have that I just want everyone to be aware of. September 10th, East Glenville Church is having a community picnic. Their services start at 10:30. That's the one right here north of Price Chopper on the left. If you're interested in attending that, it's a community picnic, services at 10:30. September 11th, I just mentioned our anniversary, obviously, of 9/11. Ceremony at 5 o'clock at the White House. Everyone's invited to be at that. They do a wonderful job every year. I think our police department will be there as well. And fire departments, I think, we're invited to.
Set out.
Okay. And then at 3:30 on that day, Reva is having a ribbon cutting right at the county airport.
No, REPA is not, it has been canceled because of the possible impact from Hurricane
Oh.
We
That makes
just got
sense.
that notification today, yeah.
Right, so that just got canceled, so we'll strike that. And then the 15th, there's a Yates Mansion benefit concert over at Blairstone Manor. If you're interested in tickets, call us here at Town Hall or email me. And that's all I have. So I will entertain a motion
I
for...
just wanted to say one more quick thing. Ben, it's also good to see you here. Just want to say that.
And entertain a motion for executive session.
I'll move it.
Second?
A second?
Moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're in executive session.